I'm very, very happy to have you on. This is actually mine and REC Canada's debut on LinkedIn Live. So to get your insight on the debut as to so why was I excited to get LinkedIn Live? What am I doing with it? Well, that's what you do for a living, Virgilia, is tell people what to do with the tools that they have. So a huge welcome to Simeon Live, and a huge welcome to this stage. If you could give us a 2 second intro of yourself, where you're from,
Sure.
what you do, that would be fantastic.
Sure. So I'm Virgilia Virjoghe. I'm originally from Romania. I studied in Germany. And about 2 decades ago, I moved to New York City and I never left. Initially, I started in consulting, working with a German consulting brand, very well known, Siemens Management Consulting. And then I got recruited to work in fashion. So I ended up for over a decade working with Versace and Dolce & Gabbana. And I also had the pleasure of working with Damon John from Shark Tank for quite some time. So this is in short, my background. But my deepest passion in life is to highlight greatness in others. And what better opportunity to do so than creating personal brands who make an impact in the world, also on their own, but also via strategic partnerships, which I feel very passionate about.
So tell me what you mean. What you're saying is every single person has the power within them to create an impact, and by branding that, it helps them bring it out. How does one do so? Where are you going with this?
So, first of all, we are all exceptional human beings to begin with. Most of the time, Simeon, what I do notice, a lot of incredible individuals do not have the ability to showcase their greatness into the world, right? In the digital era, we sometimes have 3 seconds or 5 seconds to truly make an impact on our audiences. And this is a visual impact first, but then obviously the expertise and credibility come into the mix. However, where I do see personal brands making an impact in the world is by creating the emotional connection with our audiences. Each of us has a story, right? We are much more than our credibility, expertise, our lifestyle. We are the story that truly make us who we are as human beings. Before people look up to us like being successful personal brands, they look at our humanity. They look to identify elements that could perhaps make them relate to us.
To
And I feel like,
to
right?
resonate
Yes.
with them.
Yes, to resonate, right? Like you and I, we were in a room last Saturday on Clubhouse, and we both feel very passionate about branding ourselves. Why is this important, Simone? Not for vanity metrics, right? Because prior to pandemic, I would say a lot of corporations, including financial agencies, real estate agencies like yourself, the business came organically and also through word of mouth, through existing strategic partners and referrals. Pandemic forced us out of our comfort zone. Suddenly, we had no choice but become digital, right? We are on Zoom calls all the times. The reason what pandemic brought to us, the ability for us to be here, right? Maybe before we would not be as passionate about interacting visually as well via digital platforms. So I would say because of the power of digitalization, we have to be very mindful how we portray ourselves out there. Whether we are working in fashion, real estate, finance, and so on, the impact we make on people has everything to do with the way we present ourselves, the type of content we put out there.
So tell me, do you think people should be sitting down and putting a plan together strategically and with intent as to what their image, because there's the factor of authenticity, but just because you're authentic doesn't mean you can't be strategic. So how you present your authenticity is the strategy. Would you agree with that statement? And if so, who can drive? So from a practical perspective today, if you are a digital strategist, let's say, how does one find a digital strategist who has had success to coach them on something like this?
So I'm glad you asked me this question. But first, regarding strategy, I'm going to answer your first question. So when I created my new company, VV Global Partners, I created a method. I call it the 3-step brand accelerator method, right? If you are a personal brand, there are 3 steps that when I work with my personal brands, I follow. There is a method to greatness. Just like Michael Jordan, my favorite personal brand, will tell you, you don't just get on court and you just score. There is a mindset that goes behind it. There's athletic abilities and the training behind it, right? So every success that we create has a structure, is intentional. So with my personal branding, or if we speak about branding strategies, I have the 3-step method. The first method is identifying precisely our wow factor. What makes us unique, whether we are a personal brand or an organizational brand, they are the core elements, our values, but also the wow factor that makes us stand out in the highly competitive market. Once we identify that, we create a bio that has to be consistent across all social media platforms and on our websites as well. After we create the bio, we have to create a strategic approach to content creation. Every type of content we put out there, whether it's on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, has to speak volumes and resonate specifically and be completely in sync with the bio. So if my bio says I do a certain type of work, my content should specifically articulate that as well. Support, right? So now the expertise that we claim has to be supported by credibility factors. And the moment we start creating content, now expertise, everybody can claim expertise, but credibility, once we start to engage via content right there, that creates the perfect support for the foundation that is our expertise, right?
Well,
Now, yeah.
Tip on displaying and showcasing the actual ability, would it be reviews? How does one tie that in?
You mean like the content creation? Are you
No,
referring to the content?
now so after the strategy, there's the credibility component.
Yes.
How
Yes.
does one prove that they're credible?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that. So let's say Clubhouse, right? On Clubhouse, every day I go on Clubhouse, there are millions of personal brand strategists out there and brand strategists. When I go to these people's pages, Instagram, website, I have to see who their clients are. This is becoming now the credibility factor. If you claim you are a brand strategist or a personal brand strategist, or in my case, I call myself a brand architect because I also build brands, right? I have to see your resume. I have to see how many brands you work with, and your content has to highlight your work. Now, what if you go to my Instagram, for instance, it's all about my clients and the people, the strategic partners I work with. Everything is there. I do Instagram lives, I do Clubhouse, my people are there. It's very important to highlight your work in a way that people build trust with you, right? Now, of course, a lot of people claim expertise when you start quizzing them. Okay, how many brands did you help? Who are those brands? And then suddenly you see that people are stopping right there. Well, I'm a brand strategist. If you're a brand strategist, who are your clients? What type of content you put out there, right? So it's very important. I would say at that point, not just your resume, but your ability to interact via content creation with your audiences and consumers' reviews. Once you go live with your clients, you see how they respond to you, right? They endorse you, right? Like you and I, we connected on Clubhouse. You would not invite me here if I would not have made a sort of impression that I have expertise, yes. Right? People interact. So I would say those are a few elements that truly highlight our credibility as well, not just the expertise that we claim.
I'm going to tell you that in my experience, what I have done over the last, call it year and a half, what my business partner and I strategically started about 4 years ago, what he personally did with it after our conversation 3 years ago and counting, it is so incredible. And what I'm referring to is a digital transformation. We had a very traumatic event about 4 years ago. We lost one of our partners in a tragedy, and that left our brand in limbo. It created a massive void. We were, 10, 12 years down our journey. We were very successful in this crazy, tragic, and stigma-inducing event happens. And I was left with my partner, and I'm speaking to my partner Jazz Takar, which you may know. He loves Clubhouse. He's on there a lot. You may or may not have run into him, but Jazz and I have been partners for 15 years, and what we had to do is we had to do a rebirth, and that rebirth was driven on our core values. It was driven around our personalities and authenticity. and it was driven by consistency. I would love you to give me your thoughts on authenticity, energy, and hard work, followed by consistency.
Yes. I love this question. So authenticity, it's overrated because everybody talks about authenticity so lightly these days, right? So what I would like us to kind of take into consideration right here, authenticity, it's very easy for us to go out there and say, I'm authentic. What exactly makes you authentic? Is it your core values? Is it the way you interact with others? Is it how carefully you build strategic partnerships and friendships and you highlight greatness in others? I would say if I would identify, let's say if I work with a client and identify their authentic self, you have to create, I have like 50 questions that I ask every client, right? We go over all these questions, and out of all the elements that I write down about them, we identify three core elements, always three. Three is my magic number. Three core elements that speak volumes about their authenticity. Authenticity for one person might be that you want to change the world, like Elon Musk, right? That's his authentic self. He's an idealist. He truly believes he's going to change the world, right?
I
That's
think he
part of his
already has, so
authenticity,
God bless him. But keep going, Elon.
right? Exactly. Michael Jordan, his authenticity is his work ethic, right? It's way beyond, like when people think about authenticity, they think, oh, he's kind of powerful. No, his authenticity is his ability to be consistent in delivering to his team, whether his ankle was broken, whether his knee was dislocated, he showed up. That's his authentic value. To me, authenticity reflects beautifully to our core values. There are certain elements that do not change, they stay consistent. You can't reinvent authenticity, right? There, and that's why I would say identify the top three core values that are the foundation for your authenticity, right? Now, the wow factor. Your wow factor is part of your authenticity as well. And yesterday, I hosted a room specifically on what's your wow factor. I would say your wow factor, you have to identify that element of surprise, that when people come across you as a personal brand, they stop and they remember you because of that wow factor, right? So that would be the second element. The third element is consistency. I always tell everyone I work with, your profile picture should be the same on your Instagram, on your LinkedIn, on all social media platforms. Your handle, if possible, keep it the same. It's so confusing when sometimes someone on Instagram is, let's say, the king of the jungle, and then I connect with them on Clubhouse and is something totally different, right? Be consistent, because repetition creates brand awareness. That's why, as you say, consistency is so important to you as well. The more you repeat the same bio, the same core values, people will remember you. If you constantly change and you're not consistent, in a digital world where we're exposed to like million of content pieces every day, and we hear so many people, how are you going to create that bridge, the emotional connection? And second, like the fourth element that comes into the mix is, how do you add value to your consumers? Right? And most of the times I don't see that element. Everybody's out there about, this is who I am, that's what I do, that's how I'm going to change the world. But what is the value that you offer to your consumers, to your friends, to your strategic partners? This is why people come to you. And this is how you build communities, based on establishing the value that you provide, the service, being in service to others. That's what establishes loyalty with your consumers. And hopefully communities will convert into consumers, consumers will convert into loyal consumers.
Yes, and I have a few things that I want to add to that. First and foremost, I'm going to finish the story that I started, because everything that you just went over is extremely relevant and resonates with me 1,000,000%. Because if you don't show up, you can't win to begin with. So, as far as Michael Jordan is concerned, as far as any of the greats playing with broken arms and dislocated shoulders or knees, if you don't show up, you can't even talk about it. So the fact that he was there through the thick or thin of it is why he won the championships and created the legend that he is. But to finish the story, is when we did this digital transformation, we kept the core values the same, meaning we led with education. So, and I'm going to take this conversation a little bit into the real estate space now, because I do want people to come out of this conversation with the value that only you specifically can provide as a strategist and architect of brands. and real estate agents, brokers, mortgage brokers for that matter, and insurance agents, kind of like my whole circle of influence and network of influence, all have to do the same thing. And that is to create a value proposition to differentiate themselves out of the crowd as to why they can service, or why would somebody want to be with you. And what we did from our digital transformation, and this is the most important part of it all, is the fact that we led with education. We went on a blitz that has not stopped and never will stop of content creation, deliberately targeting investors in real estate.
Mm.
So when we created our niche and doubled and tripled down on our niche, the result started showing itself every day, little by little. Consistency is what drove, and patience, of course. Consistency and patience, of course, is what slowly did. When you take one bite at a time, you start getting full. When you take one bite at a time, you can start storing. And we grew literally, we were at about 100 to 130 million in production in 2017. We're almost at a $500 million in production at year over year today. So to have a 400% return, and when I talk about patience, because people think that's very fast, it is very fast, but it started with 1% 1 month, 2% the next month, but it slowly started compounding, and 4% became 8%, 8 became 16, 16 became 32, 32 became 64, 128, 254, 512. That exponential reach that only digitalization can actually achieve because of its limitless spread and potential.
Definitely.
And to me, when I have Virgilia sitting in front of me, that you've worked with the world's top brands, I would like to ask you this question. What do people value? How do people buy?
First of all, selling is an art, right? And I have two things that I say. The product is the instant gratification. The experience of introducing this product to the market and selling it is the long-term value that you establish with your consumers, right? When we think about Dolce & Gabbana, people don't buy Dolce & Gabbana and Versace just because it's pretty. There is a belief system created around it. You start to feel like, I'm important if I wear that dress. I'm successful. I exude the idea of success. Now with real estate, the emotion behind it, right? It's an experience. Product, again, is the instant gratification. I buy a product, I wear it 2 times. Next thing you know, I want another product. But the long-term value is how it makes me feel. Real estate right now, and because I do work, actually, I have clients who own real estate agencies. When you think about real estate, how much it changed during the last, let's say, 5 years or so, people don't just invest in buildings. They want equity. Right? We don't just buy a property because we say, okay, let me just put my money somewhere. You think, what's the long-term value if I want to sell it, right? So now when it comes to real estate agencies, they have to identify precisely their niche audience, right? Depending on who your customer is, you have to initiate a dialogue. I would say one of the biggest mistakes I notice is people do monologues. This is who we are. That's our brand. That's how we sell. These are our buildings. No, it's about the dialogue that you initiate with your audiences. Constantly identify what they want. Take them by surprise, the wow factor. As a real estate agency, what makes you different is the people. It's the culture, right? People will work with you, Simeon, because of your amazing personality. If 10 people invite me to come to LinkedIn Live, I'm going to pick the person that I resonate with the most, right? When you speak about real estate, you don't talk buildings. You talk about your humanity, your passion, what sets your soul on fire, right? To work with your teams, to build consistent success. People are drawn to that passion. Now, the storytelling aspect of it is what you beautifully articulated just a few minutes ago. You said, we lost my partner. That moment you had me at hello. Right now, it's not about the real estate agency. It's about the powerful mission that we embarked on to transform people's lives as a team. So right now, another element comes into the equation. We are building teams and we love one another. We support one another. We suffer when one of us doesn't do well or is being taken away from us, right? So right now, I want to work with you, number one, because obviously you have the credibility and the expertise. But even more so, I know that if I work with Simeon and if I ever go through something in life, he's not just my real estate strategic partner. He's a human being that will relate to me, will accommodate my feelings as well. So storytelling, this is what makes people customers for life.
Is
Right?
is there a vulnerability factor to that? Is maybe authenticity the ability to tell what hurts you inside or what you celebrate inside is shared in a way that it doesn't have to be crying tears and being personal from a family perspective, but is authenticity maybe linked to sharing your weaknesses as much as it is sharing your strengths?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. When I interviewed Mr. Francis Grimberger, he is the founder and president of Time Equities, right? The very well-known real estate organization here in the United States. In his book, The Risk Game, he actually speaks about losing his child, 5 years old. He drowned in a swimming pool. Right there, we look at this human being. Yes, he's a real estate tycoon, but his book speaks about his passion. At 14 years old, he started a company, right? Is the passion, the heart. Right now, everything he creates, when I read something about him, I think Francis is that person that suffered a loss. People want to be able to relate. Imagine if Versace would go out there and it's just story of success year after year. People cannot relate to our successes as much they can relate to our failures. When Mr. Versace was being killed, right, and Donatella suddenly is left to run an empire, people fell in love with her passion to continue a legacy. Whether she was a great designer or not at the time, they just supported her dream to continue her brother's legacy. Right there, it was the emotion that people came out of the woods for her, right? It's like, we are going to support. To this day, Versace is one of the greatest brands, fashion brands in the world. Why? Because Donatella showcased sensibility, vulnerability. She showcased her mistakes. She was honest about it, straightforward. She didn't want to just be the queen of fashion.
Yes. The world was watching. I remember this. I was like, we were talking mid-90s, no?
Mr. Versace was killed in 1997. So, yeah.
So I remember this. I was 18, 19 years old, and I remember this playing out live on the world stage. And people were rooting for Donatella. People were because they felt so close to an icon that just got hurt.
Yeah.
So people flocked to the rescue. People tried to support. It's very interesting you say that. Virgilia, I have a couple, maybe I'm going to just ask you one more thing because I know your time is ultra valuable and I want to respect it. I want you to touch a little bit on the best platforms that somebody who is in sales, in this case, real estate sales, what would you say right now are some of the best platforms to build a connection and relationship on?
Okay, awesome question. So the first, I would say LinkedIn is a driving force for real estate organizations, corporations, real estate agents. It just creates such an impact because they support. LinkedIn supports is a strong community around real estate. So LinkedIn, be very intentional with your LinkedIn. Make sure that your picture is amazing, that your background, the banner is incredible, that your bio speaks volumes. A lot of people, I go to their LinkedIn, they don't take it seriously. They just slap some information out there. You never know who's going to come across your profile. So be very intentional with your LinkedIn. LinkedIn, social media is your digital business card. Think it this way. So that's your best. It should be the best representation of yourself. When it comes to LinkedIn content, video content is king across all social media platforms. Post 30 seconds. Your goal should be to post every day, at least 30 seconds to 1 minute and a half of video content. It could be related to the news in real estate. It could be related to something you feel passionate about, or it could be specifically about something you're selling. If you're selling a building, make sure that the whole week, the whole month, you create content around it to promote that particular topic or that particular selling strategy. Number two, Instagram is a different side. On Instagram, you can be a little bit more personal, right? The reason I love Instagram because it's sort of the non-official strategic partner for Clubhouse, right? It's the way to continue conversation after you are being introduced on Clubhouse. On Instagram, the mistake that I see a lot of, I would say, professionals making is too much professional content. After a while, it's just quotes and advice.
Yes.
People want to see who you are as a
Yes.
person as well. So I have a ratio. I say 80% on Instagram should be work-related matters, and 20% if you are with your kids that weekend, with your wife, with your girlfriend, showcase that side of you too. If I go to an Instagram and it's only work, 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 and quotes, it doesn't give me a reason to turn on the notifications, right? So on Instagram, be intentional ratio, 80% work, 20% personal. Don't go all the way personal because social media platforms are a tool for you to a monetizable tool. Don't Social media is not a playground, right? And number three, for Clubhouse, there are so many amazing rooms right now centering around real estate. Go to Clubhouse, be intentional about what rooms you are participating to because time is valuable, right? Identify your power circle and start building rooms together with your power circle to precisely highlight the industry you're in. So at Twitter is great to promote your room on Clubhouse. Twitter is great for those to respond to great leaders and get attention to yourself. It's just the limiting aspect of it is you only have a few characters, right? But I would say I would go in this order. LinkedIn, just capitalize with your expertise. Make sure your LinkedIn profile looks amazing. Wow factor on LinkedIn, right? Instagram, ratio 80% work, 20% personal. Clubhouse, create your power circle. Invite strategic partners who can be in real estate, they can be in marketing and branding. And Twitter, make sure you promote your work on Twitter and interact and respond to people you look up to and build that emotional connection and that bridge. I hope this helps. I was trying to rush because I knew we had just a few minutes. So
You listen to me carefully. I cannot thank you enough for the absolute gems and diamonds you have dropped all over my network today. I'm sure people are going to be picking these things up for the next 2, 3, 4 to a year because this is going to live on my profile for a long time. I could not be happier with our discussion and with the insight that you shared. And I definitely want to ask you to stay for a minute in the backstage after I end the broadcast because I have to introduce you to a few people, specifically my VP of Sales. Her name is Laura Stewart, and she just started a digital media agency, specifically a video content production agency. And I have my team meeting coming up. I'm going to have my 50 agents on a Zoom call and talking about personal branding. So as a matter of fact, if you have time, you're more than welcome to join me there too, and drop gems. But Laura specifically said in our WhatsApp chat, we have a team chat. It could because I've run a social media program for my agents, meaning because they're so busy they never post, and they just don't get it.
yes.
So I had to rip them a new one. I had to talk to them like you cannot be an elite broker and not have a consistent presence on social. So we created a generic, as personal as possible. At least we're scheduling and posting on their socials, developments, value adds, tidbits, download content, whatever. But it's not personal. It's not personal.
That's what I
So
so
Laura, so Laura drops a huge message like this, saying, guys, girls, you need to get personal. You need to separate yourself from the pack. So everything that you spoke about today is kind of at her heart. And I think you could literally, you would bring a massive boatload of value to Laura and vice versa. I think you guys would. She's a fashion queen. She was she's an MBA and a purchaser for Holt Renfrew in Canada, which is kind of like a Saks Fifth Avenue, like a high end department store here. So she loves fashion. I think you guys would kick it off. I want you guys to meet each other.
No, of course, I would be delighted to. And I also wanted to share, since we talk about real estate, the reason Giselle Gaston from Douglas Elliman is my go-to person I'm looking for to purchase a property, because of her personality and her drive. She follows up with me. She's beautiful. We went live together. And yesterday, somebody in the street stopped me. They noticed I was looking at some buildings, taking pictures. They say, I would love to work with you to help. I said, no, Giselle is my right. I would never, because we have that personal connection. I don't care how many real estate agents will come. I just want to work with Giselle, right? And she knows, she probably, if she sees this, right? It's very important. Be intentional, be personal. People do business with people they love and trust, right? Real estate doesn't make any exception. So I would love to speak with Laura and with your team, because I have this concept, real estate reinvented, that I would love to discuss with you and your team today as
Okay.
well.
Well, I'm going to end this broadcast right now. I would like to thank every single person who took the time and will take the time or has taken the time to see this and spend their time listening to us. We hope and genuinely believe we bring value every day. So please drop a comment, give us your feedback. If you want to hear more from Virgilia, I'm happy to connect you. If you ever have feedback for myself or my organization, the REC, I beg you to give me the feedback. We cannot grow or become better by listening to compliments. We are looking for critical feedback and things you want to hear. I send everyone lots of love.
Ciao.